Now let's discuss Bloom's classification of learning. I've mentioned a while ago that Bloom's taxonomy has six classification or six levels in learning. First of which is remembering. Now remembering is the lowest form of learning if we're going to talk about cognitive development or Bloom. Under remembering, the level of remembering, the keyword here is the learner is able to recall ideas that were discussed to the learner during the learning process. Accessibility for the learner is for the instructor to check whether the learner is able to define, duplicate, list, memorize, and repeat or state the ideas that were taught to the learner. Now, I'm going to use learning the clock here as an example for Bloom's cognitive development or the Bloom's cognitive domain under the Bloom's taxonomy. Now, in order for the learner to progress in learning, it's necessary for the learner to recall, define the value of each variable here or number that is present in the clock. So from number 1 to number 12, it's very necessary for the learner to recall and then at least memorize the numbers. It's the very foundation of the cognitive domain, which is remembering. So again, it's very necessary for the learner to at least recall the important variables present here in learning the clock, which is from number 1 to number 12. And then when the learner is able to remember those ideas, it's now time to move up to the second level, which is understanding. Here the learner is able to explain ideas. So ibig sabihin, the learner should be able to describe, discuss, explain, identify, locate, recognize, report, select, translate the significance of each variable which is present in the clock. So meaning to say, other than the variable number 1 here, meron din tayong mga maliliit na lines here. And then we have the value of number 5, which represents the first 5 minutes of the clock. At tapos meron din tayong shorthand and then longhand. And then when the learner is able to understand that, or at least explain those ideas, the instructor should be able to progress to the next level, which is to apply what the learner was able to remember and understand. In this level, the learner is able to use the information in new situations. Yung keywords natin here is execute, implement, solve, use, demonstrate, interpret, operate, schedule, and sketch. So, ibig sabihin, in this scenario, the instructor is going to use scenarios, cases, wherein the reading of time can be applied. For example, if I'm going to kunin natin yung keyword na schedule. So, ibig sabihin, remember tayo. So, shorthand is for the hour hand. Longhand is for the minute hand. So, ibig sabihin nito, if I'm going to finish, let's say, my gaming, you're only allowed to play for 15 minutes. So, paano natin i-apply yung 15 minutes sa isang concrete scenario? So we can only the learner is able to understand the applicability of the 15 minutes if we're going to incorporate the ideas that were remembered and then understood during the learning process in a concrete scenario, which is gaming here. So gaano katagal ba ang 15 minutes? Let's apply those ideas that you've understood and remembered in a specific scenario. So in this case, I'm able to demonstrate in a new situation, which is gaming here, yung idea of learning the clock, yung idea of understanding the first 15 minutes. Right? So the keyword for application here is you need to apply the ideas that you previously remembered and understood during the learning process, and execute that into a new situation, or implement that into a new situation. And if the learner is able to apply that, hinati ngayon to ni Bloom sa gitna. The first 3 stages of learning development under the cognitive domain, ang sabi dito ni Bloom, ito yung mga lower order thinking skills, or the LOTS, lower order thinking skills. So ibig sabihin, ito yung mga basic knowledge, basic type of thinking that a learner should first learn, or at least imbibe. Ito muna, lower order thinking skills. And then if the learner is able to do that, it's time for the learner to understand yung next level, which is the HOTS, or the higher order thinking skills. Yung higher order thinking skills, doon na po papasok yung critical thinking, and then the creative thinking. So when the learner is able to understand the applicability of the ideas that he remembered and understood during the learning process, it's time for the learner to analyze. Now, ano ngayon meron ng analyze? It's the ability of the learner to draw connection among ideas, differentiate, ito yung mga keywords, differentiate, organize, relate, compare, contrast, distinguish, examine, experiment, question, and test. In this case, ito yung importanteng keyword, compare and contrast. Kasi nandito na yung analysis. Ibig sabihin, dito na ngayon papasok yung experimentation. When I say experimentation, it's the moment wherein the learner is able to participate his learning ideas that he learned during the previous learning process into his own. Kumbaga sa driving, ang tinuturo sa driving school is during the class session, ito, remember, then understand, and then applicability, bibigay pa rin ng example yung instructor. Pagdating dito sa analyze, ito na yung sariling situation wherein the learner is able to create his own questions. Kasi dito may participation coming from the learner, tapos being observed by the instructor. Nilalagay natin siya sa may binibigay na problema yung instructor, tapos sinusolve ng learner dun sa new situation. This time, ang learner na ngayon ang gagawa ng questions, wherein the learner is able to participate and solve his own problem. This is analysis. So again, ang keyword for analysis, dalawang important keyword is the learner is able to compare and then contrast yung mga previous learning levels, like remembering, understanding, and then applicability. And then after that, analysis evolves to evaluation. So when I say evaluation, ito na yung standards na nabuo. These are standards that were formulated by the learner during the analysis process. In this instance, the learner is able to judge, select, support, value, critique, and then weigh. So titingnan na ngayon ng may standards na nabubuo, or standards na nabubuo na kailangang pumasok dun sa criteria of standards na na-realize ng learner during the analysis process. So again, for evaluation, may standards, tapos merong checklist to achieve quality assurance. This is evaluate. So after ma-achieve natin yung quality assurance, may checklist tayo, tapos na-select natin yung proper standard to achieve quality assurance. Now, the last stage of the cognitive domain is creation. Here, the learner is able to create, produce new or original work. So if I'm going to apply the HOTS dito sa learning process ng learning how to read the clock, magdodraw tayo ng connection ng mga ideas. First, let's check analysis. Analysis muna tayo. Let's try to compare and contrast the time between the morning and then the time during the evening. Is this the same? Kaparehas bang mangyayari to? Experiment, kaparehas din ba to? If I'm having the same morning time, kung umaga ngayon dito sa Pilipinas, and then my relatives abroad, let's say for example in America, do they have the same time as mine? Umaga din ba yung oras nila doon? That's analysis. If I'm going to, let's say, study a specific subject, gaano katagal ko kayang tapusin ang isang subject? That's experimentation. And then evaluate tayo. What are the standards? Let's say I need to study for 30 minutes a specific theory about science. So kailangan kong ma-apply yon yung 30 minutes. Gaano katagal? That's 30 minutes. Now evaluate. Am I able to study all the relative or the necessary concepts in science for 30 minutes? What strategies did I use during those time? And then create here's you'll be able to create your own strategies to finish the necessary concepts for 30 minutes. So ibig sabihin, you're able to produce new strategy for the applicability of time management in this case. So again, ang keyword for creation is you're able to create or produce new work. Keywords under creation: design, assemble, construct, conjecture, develop, formulate, author, or investigate. If we're talking about the child, pwede nating paggawan yung oras, yung child to create his own schedule. So when I say create his own schedule, for when the time you woke up in the morning, let's say that's 8 a.m. What will be your next schedule? So create your own schedule and then make sure, let's say, sabihin natin from 8 to 9. 8 to 9 will be my breakfast. That's creation. And then evaluate. Why would you spend an hour for breakfast? So what are your standards to say that 1 hour is good for breakfast? Analysis tayo. Why would you choose, compare tayo, why would you choose 8 o'clock as your breakfast and then 9 o'clock? Or ba't hindi na lang 7 o'clock? That's analysis. Now, you can only do this, analysis, evaluation, then creation, if the child is able to undergo maliwanag sa bata yung remembering, understanding, and then applicability. It's only, sabi ni Bloom, it's only by understanding or by knowing the lots. Pag nalaman mo na raw itong lots, from remembering, understanding, applicability, dun mo lang malalaman that you're ready for critical thinking and then creative thinking, which is the HOTS. So, first step of creative and critical thinking is to analyze. Keyword for analyze, ayun, compare and contrast. And then you have to experiment. Tapos gagawa ka ng standards kung tama yung ginawa mong analysis. And then kung tama na yung standards mo, you create your own schedule or you create a new idea for your own convenience. That's Bloom's cognitive domain. This is why a lot of lawmakers would always pursue the importance of wearing your helmet. Kasi otherwise, kung hindi ka mag-helmet, andito yung mga domains ni Bloom na mate-threaten. You're evaluating, creating, remembering, analyzing, applicability, and then understanding. Ito yung LOTS and then HOTS, the lower order thinking skills, and then the higher thinking skills. Now, it is stated here that in order for you to evolve or at least achieve the HOTS or the higher order thinking skills according to Bloom, necessity for that is you need to be more skillful first, the LOTS. Dito, sa lower order thinking skills. You cannot have, or it would be hard for you to achieve critical and creative thinking skills na nandun sa HOTS if you will not hone your skills first sa LOTS. So in order to develop your LOTS, ang sabi ni Bloom, pataas yan. You need to hone first your remembering skills, understanding skills, applying skills, and then if you're able to do that, you can now evolve your ability to know dito sa analytical level ng Bloom's taxonomy. From analytical, evaluation tayo, and then last, and then the topmost level of thinking is creating. That's the difference between lots and then HOTS. Again, you cannot achieve HOTS without mastering first the lots. Now, ano bang questions ang sinasagot ng lots? The common questions being answered by lots or the lower order thinking skills are the following. During the exam, if you're going to encounter a question that starts with who, what, where, when, do you know, can you identify? These are example of lots. Now, you can somehow analyze these questions if there are situations like the lots. The lots here include the setting, the characters, events, vocabulary, identifying conflict, problem, and issue. There's only one question that is not part of the lots or the lower order thinking skills. Yung why questions nagsisimula na ngayon sa HOTS, sa higher order thinking skills. If you're able to answer, if the question asks you about the why, it pertains to the higher order thinking skills. Now, you cannot appreciate this one first without mastering the lots. First, says Bloom. So the HOTS, according to Bloom, these are skills demanded more in the workplace. The creative and critical thinking skills are built upon the analytical skills. Ito, yung creative and then critical thinking skills like analysis and then evaluating, they are founded under ito sa lots. Yung lots ngayon, bago siya maging HOTS, nabibuild siya muna sa analysis, analytical thinking skills. Now, let's examine the definition of analysis. When we say analysis, here it involves an approach to thinking that allows you to break down complex problems into single and manageable components. So, meaning to say, ang keyword that I gave a while ago was the compare and contrast. And then you're able to judge a specific problem, and then you try to acquire and choose a specific solution for that problem. So you are being encountered by a complex problem. That's an indicator that analysis is required from your way of thought. So kung meron ka ng complex problem or complicated problem, you are able to break it down into simpler ideas. So complex problem, komplikadong problem, tapos you're able to break it down into its parts in order for the parts to be manageable. Kasi otherwise, if you aren't able to break it down into simpler parts, yung complex problem na yan, mananatiling complex problem. So analytical thinking is visual thinking that gives one the ability to solve problems quickly and effectively. You're able to solve the problem quickly because you're able to compare and contrast the problem very quick. Or at least, the moment that you've encountered the problem, andun ka agad yung drive mo to compare the problem or to compare the situation and be able to contrast that situation into another situation. That's the indicator for the analysis or the analytical thinking level. The last step from this breaking down of the complex problem is you're able to draw a sound conclusion. Ano nang gagawin ko ngayon? Now, I'm able to break down the complex problem into a simpler form. Na breakdown ko na, nakita ko na yung mga parts. Now, ang last step niyan is you'll be able to draw a conclusion from the preceding premises that you've created. So, you're able to create those premises kasi you're able to compare and contrast the situation. Now, you're able to compare and contrast situation because you're able to identify patterns, may cause and effect. Cause and effect in relation pa rin to sa compare and contrast. And then after this one, experimentation tayo. We test the conclusion if it is effective or not. Example for this, nakalagay dito, so also have mercy on me, sa assuming that these two persons, si Mercy tsaka yung isang tao, they're commuting. Pautang naman, nakalimutan ko talaga pero ko wala akong pamasahe. Tapos sabi naman ni Mercy kay Sandra, this is Sandra, tapos ito si Mercy. Sabi ni Mercy kay Sandra, thou shall not use my name into foolishness. Sorry, sakto lang pera ko, pinunload ko kasi. So what's the problem here? What's the complex problem? Ang complex problem here is si Sandra doesn't have any money with her. So in other words, Sandra won't be able to pay his fare during the travel. So, may complex problem tayo. Paano mo siya i-break into single parts? Tapos dapat ma-solve mo siya quickly kasi your mind is driven to solve that complex problem by comparing and then contrasting. Kasi yung causal relation, yung kaugnayan ng compare and contrasting, kasi nakikita mo dito ngayon yung pattern ng cause at effect. Pag ginawa ko to, ano mangyayari? Ano magiging effect? So, andun yung compare and contrast. Pag humingi ako ng pera kay Mercy, ano mangyayari? Pag hindi ako humingi ng pera kay Mercy, ano mangyayari? Ano magiging effect? So, let's try to test other options. Andito si Mercy, di ba? Sabi ko sa'yo, i-text mo si Xavier. Sabi ni Mercy kay Sandra, sure yan, may pera. Yami na, yayamanin pa. Pwera na lang kung gusto mo kandungin kita, pero para malibre ka. So Mercy is also employing her analytical skills because he's offering her solutions, her possible solutions to Sandra. Di siya nagre-reply daw si Xavier. No choice tayo, Sosa. Halika na ka dito, kandungin kita, or try mo ipakita yung legs mo sa konduktor para di ka singilin. So in this case, si Mercy yung nagbibigay ng analytical thinking skills. Kasi siya yung nagbibigay ng manageable components to Sandra. Sige, kapalan ko na lang mukha ko kay Xavier, hirap talaga ng ulyanin. So in this case, nagbigay siya ng marami tayong mga manageable components. And then you have to draw a sound conclusion from the possible options that you've created dun sa situation na yun. This is an example of analytical thinking skills. So, ang keyword for analysis, meron kang problema. So, anong klaseng problema? It's a very complicated problem. And since it's a very complicated problem, as a thinking individual, you're able to break down the complicated problem into its manageable components. Part of that breaking down, nakikita mo yung pattern, yung cause and effect, tapos ina-apply mo yung comparing, contrasting. Tapos nagbibigay ka ng conclusion. Ulitin natin, meron tayong complex problems, tapos yung complex problem na yun nagiging manageable. Nagiging manageable kasi you're able to compare and contrast. Tapos nakikita mo rin yung cause and effect. Nakikita mo yung cause and effect, and by that you're able to draw conclusion. So makikita mo purong letter C. Complex, manageable, compare and contrast, cause and effect, and then conclusion. That's analysis. And that's the start of your higher order thinking skills. That's the start of your creative and then critical thinking skills. Now, let's examine our brain. Ito yung dahilan kung bakit this is only a theory. Some scientists were able to portray, or at least they're able to find a way to solve and procure an explanation on why there are individuals who are right-handed and then left-handed. So according to this theory, yung left brain daw, this is our left brain, the left brain controls the right side of the body. So if the left brain controls the right side of the body, most likely I'm a right-handed person. So those right-handed person are logical, focus on facts, realistic, they are orderly, they love math and science, and they prefer non-fiction. For the right-handed, for the right brain controls the muscles of the left side of the body. So madaling salita, yung mga left-handed na individual na activated or at least aggressive sa part ng brain nila is the right brain. In this case, they are emotional, they are focused on art and creativity, they are imaginative, and then they prefer fiction, and then they enjoy creative storytelling. In other words, those people who are right-handed are critical thinkers. And those individuals who are left-handed are creative thinkers. Yun ang ibig sabihin dito sa theory na to. They are thinking in words. Ito naman, imagination. They love math and logic. They love arts and anything related to the arts, like performance, dancing, and then painting. Ito yan. Lahat yan arts. Dancing, singing, lahat yan arts. So these are, in this case, these are persons whose right brain are more aggressive compared to the left brain. Now, why do we have to discuss philosophy in understanding the behavior of our right and left brains and understanding Bloom's taxonomy? Now, the reason why we're going to study philosophy, specifically logic, in our course is because let's analyze first the word itself. The word philosophy was derived from the Greek word philosophia, philia, which means love, and then sophia, which means wisdom. Now, wisdom is different from intelligence. Intelligence is your ability to qualitatively acquire and apply the information you obtain. So, ibig sabihin, if you are good in the lots and then the hots, you're most likely intelligent person. So, ito yung may mga title. Sila yung mga doktor, sila yung mga abogado, sila yung mga engineer, sila yung mga pumasa sa board exam or kung ano pa. Or in this case, they are able to apply the information that they obtain. Qualitatively kasi magaling sila sa remembering sa lots, and then papunta sa hots, magaling din sila sa pinaka-highest level of thinking ni Bloom, sa creativity. Ito yung intelligence. Now, what is wisdom? Wisdom in philosophy is your ability to carefully examine life's complexities. Ang ibig sabihin nito, yung kabuuan ng buhay. Dito, sa intelligence, this pertains to the subject. Different subject matters being introduced to schools by culture. That's intelligence. Pagdating naman dito sa wisdom, ito yung complexities na na-encounter ng isang individual sa buhay. In order for that individual to pursue contentment and truth. So, ibig sabihin, this is more general compared to intelligence, which is more specific. Philosophy can be closely described by this movie, Into the Wild. This film is I think this is now available in Netflix. Tinutukoy sa film na to, itong person na to who is a graduate is a graduate of a specific college. I think mataas yung intelligence niya in terms of acquiring information, but he decided to not pursue his career in relation dun sa course niya. Mas pinili niyang i-separate yung sarili niya sa lipunan. Conformity. The problem with life is you are so much attached to society that you are obligated to conform to its standards. Like, for instance, if you are born into this world, you are tied up to the demands of the society. Kailangan mong sumunod sa demands ng society. Anong demands ng society? The moment that you reach 4 years old, 3 years old, you have to attend schooling. At matatapos yon once you reach 21 or 22 years. Now, after attending schooling, society dictates again that you need to look for a job. So, ibig sabihin, ang nagdidikta ng buhay mo, hindi ikaw, kundi ang society mo. Ang question is that complex or not? For philosophy, that's complex. Kasi ang nawawala dito is your contentment and then your happiness. Ito ba ang katotohanan na binibigay ng buhay? That's the problem being answered by philosophy. So philosophy begins in doubt. The very moment that you're doubting about something, about a specific belief, that's philosophy. Because you are after the certitude of something. Pinagdududahan mo yung isang bagay kasi gusto mong makarating kasi kasiguraduhan. Gusto mong malaman yung katotohanan, kaya ka nagdududa. Tama pa ba tong course na pinili ko? Accountancy, tong tourism, tong HM? The very moment na nagduda ka, ibig sabihin nun, you are after certitude. Ibig sabihin ng pagdududa, hindi ka na kontento. Pag hindi ka na kontento, ibig sabihin nun, hindi ka na masaya. And the very important element present in philosophy is for you to achieve real happiness. When I say real, hindi ito yung short while. Ibig sabihin ng real dito is enduring, pangmatagalan. And this is the objective of this person in this film. Hindi niya makita yung contentment dun sa conformity ng individual na being dictated by the society. He wanted to separate himself. That's why Untitled is into the wild. Gusto niyang mabuhay sa wild without conformity to the without conforming himself to the demands of the society. Kasi kinonform niya yung sarili niya sa demands ng society for 22 years. So ibig sabihin, masaya ba siya? Hindi siya masaya kasi yung freedom niya nawala. That's why tinanggal niya lahat, even yung cellphone niya, yung connection niya sa family niya, connection niya sa loved ones, lahat yun nawala into the wild. And ang question, nalaman niya ba yung katotohanan? Nalaman niya ba yung contentment? Yun yung malalaman niyo dun sa movie. That's philosophy. So we're going to compare intelligence with wisdom. That's the objective of critical thinking and then creative thinking. If you're able to achieve, let's say you're being a dense list in a specific term, naging magna cum laude ka, naging summa cum laude ka, is that intelligence or wisdom? Pag sinabi ba nating nagkaroon ka ng malaking bahay, magandang sasakyan, magandang asawa, mababait na anak, is that contentment already? Yun na ba ang katotohanan ng buhay? Or will you still pursue for more? For instance, si Pacquiao. Mayaman na si Pacquiao. Senador na siya. Kontento na ba siya? Nakita niya na ba ang katotohanan ng buhay? Pag kontento na siya, tatakbo pa ba siya for a higher office? If he would run for a higher office, that only means that hindi niya pa alam ang tunay na contentment. Pag hindi niya pa alam ang tunay na contentment, ibig sabihin, under philosophy, he's still doubting the real meaning of happiness. That's philosophy. Now, ang isipin niyo si Pacquiao is almost 42. So, kailan niya pa malalaman yung tunay na contentment if he's still pursuing something? Well, bata pa naman yung 42, pero let's check. Let's see if Pacquiao will run for office. That's the difference between philosophy and then intelligence. Kasi may mga tao daw na lover of pleasure, lover of success. Yung iba may mga lover of wisdom lang. And then those who would pursue for intelligence, they are lover of pleasure and then they are lover of success. In this case, these are individuals. It's very hard for these individuals to achieve contentment. Kasi once na makuha mo, for instance, kasi may mga individual na merong abogado na, doktor pa, tapos magpi-PhD pa. Tapos meron na silang isang sasakyan, kukuha pa sila ng pangalawang sasakyan, kukuha pa sila ng pangatlong sasakyan. Meron na silang magandang asawa, maghahanap pa sila ng pangalawang asawa. Meron pa silang kalandian sa workplace, meron pa silang kalandian sa ibang organization. To the point na ando na sila, na nakuha na nila lahat ng pleasure ng buhay, nakuha na nila ng success ng buhay. Pero but hindi pa rin sila kontento. That's the difference between intelligence and then wisdom. Now, under philosophy, we're going to discuss these branches. I just placed here 9 branches to just limit down the definition of philosophy and then at least analyze critical thinking and then creative thinking in these branches. First, we're going to discuss metaphysics. Nagbibigay na lang ako ng keywords for you to easily remember these complex terms.